There is a delay. So if people are on Facebook and you are wanting to ask me a question, please know I don't really see it in real time, but I will try my best to keep all of our different platforms together. So let's get started. As this event kicks off, our month-long celebration of Earth Month, I first wanted to, in the spirit of sustainability, honor the land beneath us. And for those of you who don't know, NC State University sits on land that was originally stewarded by two indigenous tribes, the Tuscarora and the Catawba tribes. And so we honor these tribes today by recognizing that NC State University is built on land that was stolen from those who were here before the colonizers arrived. Indigenous Americans have long before their first contact with European colonizers have shared their knowledge of the land and its resources and continue to play a vital role in the development of our local communities and of course here in North Carolina. So we honor these people today and every day by recognizing them in order to break the cycle of colonization and the continued erasure of Indigenous peoples. So I hope as I move forward with this presentation, you'll begin to see that connection of zero waste strategies, the behaviors and programs, and how it's so interconnected with this type of recognition, because we must truly acknowledge our history as well as our current systems of oppression of the spaces and places that we occupy to both understand and unlearn the many ways in which we've been socialized. People and planet have always been connected. And that is why today we are talking about zero waste at NC State. And my name is Lonnie St. Hill. I use pronouns she and her here and everywhere. And today we'll be reviewing zero waste, the different interpretations of what that actually means, kind of reviewing that zero versus low waste debate, going over some facts and figures, how to make a plan for zero waste, and of course, the 8 R's of zero waste, because you know I'm extra and there has to be 8. So let's kick it off by just defining waste. And that's actually really tricky because there are different interpretations of what waste is. But at NC State University, we see waste as the potential loss of resources that would otherwise have economic and environmental benefits. But ... right? So they would have otherwise have economic and environmental benefits. And waste is also something that could detrimentally impact our people and our planet. So when we begin to think about zero waste, it really is a combination about resources lost and negative impacts that are happening, okay? The Zero Waste Alliance actually does define it. Not many people do, but the Zero Waste Alliance says that it is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning, and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So again, we see this concept of waste about the conservation of resources, but making sure that they're not threatening our people or our planet. I think it's really important to also look at zero waste in terms of global methodologies. The United Nations actually has a Sustainable Development Goals. And while they don't use that terminology of zero waste, goal number 12 does discuss sustainable productions and consumption patterns. And so that is where we're looking at how, as a planet, right, and all of the nations within it, we just have an unsustainable use of natural resources, and we're wreaking havoc on our planet. And so one of the greatest global challenges right now that we're facing is this thinking that economic growth must be coupled with environmental degradation, which is not true. We need to really split that and understand that we can take care of our planet our people and do it in a way that is healthy also for everyone, including the economy. And that is what kind of creates this idea of sustainable and resilient societies. This is a term by the UN. And this is where, they really focus on resource efficiency, mitigating environmental degradation, protecting human health and environment, and of course, promoting the environmental sound management of hazardous and other waste, okay? And when you think about these things, again, it's these same terminologies, right? We're protecting our people, our planet, but we're conserving resources while we're doing it. And that is really key to what we're doing. Here at NC State, we view zero waste within the pillars of sustainability. If you've never had the opportunity, I really recommend that you visit sustainability.ncsu.edu, and they have our sustainability strategic plan laid out within these 5 pillars. It actually is coming up for review again, because our current plan ends 2022. And so we are revisiting each of these pillars, and zero waste fits extremely well within all of them, and it is central to each of them. So not only within our academic institutions and our courses and degrees where we learn about resource management, but also in the way we communicate the importance, we communicate to our Wolfpack campus, as well as the community and all of our partnerships around the world about our goals for solving global challenges, which waste is one of them. It involves creating opportunities for students to lead, whether that's through student organizations or through professional internships with all of our groups, working within this area of waste management. And then of course, creating this community and culture of sustainability and this consciousness of what it means to be sustainable, right? Now, operations planning and design is what most people think, because let's take it, zero waste is a tangible thing. And so for that reason, we actually do think of zero waste as a number, but it impacts everything. And depending on who you are and what your goals are in life, you can see zero waste through different frameworks. So whether that's through a design process because you are creating new products, or supply chain management because you are shipping or you are selling or you are working with people around the world, how can you create zero waste? It can be policies. For us, again, it's a number. So there's many things about this concept of zero waste, but it's always remember that its roots are indigenous, okay? So, and as we begin to think of that, we come about this idea of zero waste versus low waste, okay? So here at NC State University, we have the number 0. So we want to divert all of the waste that's generated on campus away from the landfill. And we do that either through reuse programs, through composting, through recycling, through strategies for waste reduction in general. And so our goal is zero waste. But as an individual, I know that it's often very difficult to do that. We have to really acknowledge that there are personal, organizational, and systemic barriers to living that type of lifestyle. And so when I want us to always know that we've got to break down those binaries. It's not this versus this, it's and, okay? Our goal is zero waste. Are we doing it now at NC State University? No, we're not. But we have a plan, and we know that we can complete that plan. And I'll get to that in a minute. But we know that there are certain barriers in place right now. And as an institution, we have to try to develop plans to overcome those barriers. And it's just about, though, setting your intentions. So as an institution, we are striving for zero waste because we are setting our intentions that we believe this is something that's important and it's necessary for us to have that goal so that we can continually reach it, like take those steps and processes to reach it. as an individual, that can feel very, very suffocating and very hard. There's a lot of guilt often attached to that, but just know that it's a process and a journey, and that it's not either or, it's a continuation of defining like what our ultimate goals are. And why we do this? Well, if you're listening to this and you're interested in Earth Month at all, it can be kind of obvious, right? We do this because the world continues to use natural resources unsustainably. These are some facts and figures given by the UN. We just can, it's not matching. Our global material footprint is increasing faster than our population growth and our economic output. Even though we've become efficient in certain areas, we're losing grounds in others. We continue to subsidize certain industries in the world, and the UN notes that that is contributing to the climate crisis. We lose a lot of food along our supply chain, and we generate a lot of waste, but we're not actually diverting it from the landfill. We're not using the processes that we know how to do to divert it, okay? And it's a big problem. And even here at NC State University, this is what we're doing now. We're at a 54% diversion rate. While we have a wonderful programs for reuse and donation here on campus, and we have recycling everywhere, all these opportunities to recycle materials, as well as to compost, we still send almost 7 million pounds of landfill away, and it's very harmful to our planet, to our community, our planet, the people that live around our landfills. And so we have to make a plan. And I think that's really important. It's not just for institutions, but it's also for individuals. You have to create a plan. And for us, our planning is always done by data. And so this is the latest data that we have as an aggregate for campus. We did this back in the summer of 2019. Unfortunately, we haven't done any campus-wide waste audits this past year due to the pandemic. But this gives you an idea of what we are sending to the landfill. So if you've never experienced or done a landfill, a waste audit before, basically we dump dumpsters and we sort them into all the different types of material. And we try to figure out what we should have done or what we could do, right? What are the opportunities for us to divert it? And what we found overall for our campus, and this does include like all the different types of buildings. So whether it's residence halls, our vet school, the libraries, recreation centers, academic buildings, this is what it looks like. And the majority of all the waste on our campus that we're sending to the landfill is compostable. 48%, that's so much. But what's another huge kicker is that if you look at this graph and you see our paper and recyclable containers, so paper is like what you would think office paper, but also includes like cardboard as well. Recyclable containers are bottles, glass and plastic bottles, aluminum cans. So really the basics, stuff that we should know that we can recycle. And almost 18% of the waste that we send is recyclable. And that's really hard to wrap our minds around, because while organics is a huge number, we know that we currently don't have infrastructure everywhere on campus. It exists in a lot of our buildings. It exists in a myriad of different programs and ways, but not in every building. And so not every single person living on campus or studying or working on campus has access to composting. And so we know that that is part of our plan. We need to expand access to composting, right? On the flip side though, for recycling containers and bins and dumpsters, and it is accessible everywhere, outside, inside buildings. No matter where you go, you have access to a recycling bin. And yet 18% of our waste is still recyclable, of the easy stuff, right? And so that shows us that we need to continue to work not only on our infrastructure and really look at, is it set up? Is it optimized for diversion? But also look at our education. Do people truly understand what can and cannot be recycled? And how do we convince people that this is important? How do we let them know that this is vital to the health of our campus, community, planet, right? And so that's where data makes a huge role for our plan. And I want you to know that you can also use this type of data for yourself. It is possible to audit your own waste and to really begin making a plan about how you go to zero waste. We'll get into that. And so I kind of went over this, but as an institution, this is how NC State makes their plan and how we look at things. First, of course, which is super vital and important, we have our policies and guidelines. And there are a myriad of policies and guidelines that we follow, whether that's state regulations and laws, whether that's UNC school system regulations, but also campus regulations and guidelines. And it covers a lot of different items, everything from construction and demolition, as well as to sustainable purchasing guidelines for everyone who buys things on campus, to also like reuse and surplus guidelines. So FYI, you just can't throw something into the trash if you bought it with university money. There are certain rules about how to sustainably get rid of that type of material. We also, as part of our plan, we create these programs. We institutionalize programs that are driving our campus to zero waste. And this has come up because of data, right? So Zero Waste Wolfpack, that is a plan that we have with NC State Athletics, where we bring recycling infrastructure and volunteers, as well as composting to athletic events. Zero Waste Workplace, which is where we look at how bins are set up, where they're placed, are they right-sized? We also bring in composting and education and look at these very weird special collection needs that our buildings have, because guess what? Not all buildings are just paper, cans, and bottles. We have a lot of research labs here on campus, medical buildings, and just some weird stuff that is being done and generated, and that we try to find a way on how to divert it responsibly away from a landfill. And of course, we have a ton of programs for our students, including Wolfpack and Go, which is our move out program. If you're a student, you should definitely check that out. And then ongoing is our services and education, right? Zero waste events here on campus are free. If you want to host an event and you want to have composting, you can do it for free. We can help you, right? NC State believes like certain things we want to make sure that we make zero waste accessible for everyone, including students, as well as staff and departments. Cleanouts, outreach, education, it's all there. So this is all part of our plan, and we do base it off of data. But then the question comes to, what can you do, right? What can you do for zero waste? And that is where I really want us to begin thinking about the levels of action. And so this came about from a sustainability consultant from the West Coast. His name is Will Grant. And I heard him in a talk discuss this. And it just really resonated with me because I've seen this to be true. When we begin thinking about zero waste, a lot of it is based around the individual. How can I improve my life? What are the tips and tricks for me? Which is super important. We really need to focus on like improving our education and our knowledge about the impacts that we have as an individual, because that next step is we can influence our friends and our family. So we're growing our network, our circle, right? We are sharing that knowledge with our friends and family, and then hopefully making changes within that unit. But we can do more. We can take that knowledge and bring it to our school, and we can also bring it to our workplace or any organization that we belong to. So whether that's you know, a place of worship or a community organization, your knitting club, your book club. It doesn't matter what it is. You take that beyond your little circle and that way it impacts even more people. And then that next level is policy. What do we do to impact policy? So it's it's reaching beyond this little subset, but moving into community-wide policies, county, state, and of course, federal, right? And the reason why that's number 3 is starred is because this is where you actually have the most impact. Most people think that my individual straw, refusing my straw, you know, said 8 billion people, is where you actually have the most impact. And actually, nope. If I refuse my straw, I'm looking at myself, right? But if I create policies to provide compostable straws on campus, or if I help purchasing policies where we eliminate straws and move to a different method, or create a campaign for going completely strawless, to go strawless, it affects not just me now, it affects everyone within my institution, right? And so, and when we do something here, and here, for example, NC State University, other schools follow suit. And I see this to be true, whether it is school or workplace, we want to be the best. We want to do the cool thing that other people are doing. And as institutions, we are always have our eye on that prize. For example, I serve on the ACC's sports sustainability team, and we gather monthly and we discuss all the amazing things we're doing within athletics to be more sustainable. And every time somebody shares something, other schools are like, oh, how do you do that? Oh, I want to do that. How can I follow suit? Because great ideas and good they spread like wildfire, and we all want to do it too. And so when you can bring these wonderful ideas that you've learned as an individual, but move beyond yourself, you truly make a huge impact for your community and the planet. So, but how do we bring these good ideas, right? What does this look like? And this is where to kind of give you, I want to say like an order, because it's not really an order, but it is. There is a hierarchy when we begin looking at things. Even the name of the department here at NC State University, it's waste reduction and recycling, right? There's an emphasis of things, and always at the very beginning, this zero waste hierarchy, it's about just rethinking how we do things, reducing our waste from the very beginning, right? At the very, very bottom is where we're getting rid of stuff actually into a landfill. And at the worst thing, you know, it's where we're incinerating all this other stuff. So that's a hierarchy set by the Zero Waste Alliance. But let's kind of review that, how that looks like for us. And that's where I'm getting into my 8 R's. The 8 R's, I don't know if anyone ever thought of this. I love an R word. Rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, rot, recycle, request, reform. There actually is an order. Sometimes I leave request and reform at the end, but often that's actually, they should be first. But let's use this to kickstart our zero waste tips. Okay, and when I think of these tips, remember, we're thinking about the individual, we're thinking about our family, we're thinking about the school place, and we're thinking about policy. It encompasses all of this. So first one, rethink. And this is where I want us all to take that breath and we rethink our access and our privilege. Because what I have access to at my stage of life, in my family, and my ability to consume things and purchase things or not consume or purchase things, you know, that's very different than other people. And we each have our own identity, our location, our socioeconomic class, our ability to access certain things that determine our actual consumption. And so it's very important to always put that in our mind. We have to keep it in our mind and rethink that. Because for many, I've seen some zero waste zealots out there, and you know, you have to do XYZ, otherwise you hate the planet. And that's just not the case. We have our own journey, our own path, and understanding yours and where you're at can look different from somebody else's, right? And that's part of understanding our own worldview. And when I talk about worldview, I mean, why do I think what I think? What is influencing my decisions? Is it because that's how my family thinks? Is it because of the news that I watch or I read? And so really rethink about how you're getting your information and be willing to do the research and to look at why you do or don't do, okay? And I bring this up because so fun fact, I watched this new documentary. It's making all the waves in the environmental groups. That's the Cease Piracy, plan words, should have been conspiracy, but whatever, about industrialized fishing, right? And I brought this up out of like a water cooler kind of talk that we have virtually. And somebody said, oh, I never watch those things because it's just propaganda. And I was like, on the one hand, this is true. It is definitely a propaganda documentary designed to influence your behavior either through, but at the other hand, a lot of what they're saying is true. And so understanding like, okay, what is true? What is designed? What could be a gray area they're making it look very binary, this or this. And so it's important to always take that in, right? For yourself and to do the research and think about things. Not blindly accept, but also not blindly reject. And so that's when I talk about rethinking our worldviews so that we're open to new ideas, but we also just don't take it in because, oh, well, I consider myself an environmentalist and this environmentalist said this, so this must be true, right? So, but also rethinking our consumption habits. And then as we move down the line, rethinking the policies and systems that we're a part of, either that we have the ability to influence or that we are operating under. All of this, how we connect to the economy, how we connect to the systems in place are really important that we begin thinking about, because that is a way that we can make changes, right? Refuse. This is an easy one. If you're on this and you're like, how do I be zero waste? Well, I know the answer because this is all they talk about. Refuse single-use plastics. And I'm going to tell you, this is true. See all of these things here, these single-use bag, bottles, cups, utensils. All of this came from a recycling bin, walkway bin here on campus. And yeah, none of that, except for that Dunkin' Donuts and that plastic water bottle there, none of that can be recycled here in the state of North Carolina. It's all trash. And this is why we talk about refusing things, because this is all trash. And we need to refuse the single-use items, because I would say even with that recyclable water bottle, or even with that recyclable plastic bottle that somebody got their coffee in, there was an alternative, right? We could have brought something from home. And when we refuse things, we begin looking at how we can refuse these single-use items. We also need to expand like anything unnecessary in our life, whether that's freebies. People are like, oh, I got this really cool thing. Do you want it? And sometimes that in itself makes us want to be like, oh yeah, I totally want that because it was free. But do you need it? Same thing with purchases. Do you need it? And same thing with the status quo. I don't think we have to accept the status quo, no matter what that looks like, individual, family, workplace, right? Policies. Next is reduce. And so this is where we're looking at reducing our overall consumption. In no shape, way, or form do I ever say, oh, we have to live like Spartan lifestyles, don't have anything, minimalist to a T. I don't believe that. But I do believe we have to rethink our consumption and try to reduce our overall consumption and be mindful about what we do bring into our lives. And by being mindful, we're looking at how do we only consume things that have in and of themselves have a reduced footprint, either in the way that they were produced or transported, or how we have to go and get them, right? Is it being shipped from another country when I could actually just go to the farmer's market and pick it up from a local vendor? And so really begin looking at our relationship with fast and convenience, okay? And I would argue that that's really important, that we take a more slow approach and more mindful approach to these types of topics. Reuse. I love this one. We always want to reuse, brought this up, our bags, bottles, cups, and utensils. But along with reuse, that also includes things like making borrowing cool again. I grew up and I have 4 sisters and also a really cute mom. And so having clothes borrowed and shared is just a part of life. And I don't think, even though we may live all over the world now, that doesn't mean we have to stop. Be open to borrowing and sharing items with your friends and family members and even community members. There are so many wonderful people in the world and in your community as well that let you borrow stuff. There are Facebook groups that do this. Hey, can I borrow this? I need a sewing machine just for the weekend, right? Be open to this kind of behavior, this bartering. It doesn't even have to be bartering, but the sharing system. And at the same time, be open to donating your items and i.e. thrifting your items. If you do need to purchase something, thrift stores are a great way to do it. We're reducing the amount of stuff that is being sent to the landfill, and you're giving stuff a second life. But also, I put systems in there because often people, they like to reinvent a wheel, especially around sustainability. There are so many people doing wonderful work in our communities, on campus, as well as in our communities. Don't try and recreate it. Obviously you can. It's always fun to put your own stamp on things, but see how you can support other people and their work, right? Because there's systems in place and maybe they just need your creativity. They need your technical knowledge, and it really could expand their impact. So look at how you can also donate your time and be a part of somebody else's program. And then rot, AKA that's composting. Obviously there are opportunities for composting everywhere, whether you are at home, off campus or on campus. You do it in a backyard. Wake County has free composting where you can drop it off for free at their convenience centers. And of course, you could pay to have somebody pick it up directly from your house. But it's really important to know your knowledge, right? Know what's accepted. And also understand that it's more than food, i.e. When we begin talking about rot, there are other systems in place when we think about letting things go back to their natural state. And here in North Carolina, one of those big things is lawns. If you are in a home where you have your own lawn and trees and shrubbery, we are living in this world where green grass is it, and let's cut it, bag it, and have somebody pick it up, which is great. Most people who do pick up yard waste are composting it. But why? There's opportunities to use our lawns for different resources. And if you do cut it, just let it be. You can get more info on that. But when we begin also talking about rot, especially about food and food waste, know that there is a food waste hierarchy, just like with zero waste. And always at the top is rethinking about what you're doing and why you have food waste to begin with. And if there is an opportunity to feed other people with it, to feed animals with it, right? There's just different ways that we can look at all of the waste that we generate. Recycle. I've got to throw this one, of course, because it's NC State. Know what to throw in the bin. It's not just for composting, but for recycling. This is what NC State accepts. For the most part, it's almost on point with what Wake County accepts. But I do need to tell you this. Recycling is not based on the item. It has nothing to do whether the item is recyclable or not. What determines whether an item you can recycle it is whether it's accepted at the local recycling center where it's being taken, and what the contract is between the hauler, the person who picked it up from you, and that recycling center. So those are the two keys that determine whether or not you can recycle something. Of course, there are other factors such as global markets, right? Such as global markets, such as other, sorry, I lost my train of thought, such as global markets and keys. Sorry, oh, contamination, that was the word I was looking for. So whether or not they can sell it because of the value of the item, it's whether it's clean or not clean, etc. So know what to throw. This on your screen is what is accepted at NC State University. Please note, you do not see cups on your screen. There are no cups, no to-go cups, no Starbucks cups, no Port City Java cups, no cups. The other thing you do not see are plastic bags. No plastic bags. Don't put them in your bin, okay? And now we're getting to the fun ones. So our last two, and that is request is this one. Request is so important. And let's start off with the easy one. Remember we talked about our individual level of action. We also have this a responsibility to expand that to our friends, our family, and our workplace. Let them know. Let them know your intentions and let them know your objectives. Let them know, like, I recycle or I reuse, or hey, if you're going to get rid of that, please don't throw it into the landfill, right? Talk to the people around you about the zero waste behaviors that you would like to see. Let them know. If it's a loved one or a friend or a family, you know what I mean? In these conversations that you have with others, when you're throwing parties, talk about like what really warms your heart in terms of presence or presence, right? That's something I discuss with my kids. I'm not a cut flower fan. I just think like, oh, well, yes, I'll compost it, but I would much rather get like a basil plant. I let them know that, right? And that way they are able to have sustainable consumption habits because I'm influencing that, because they care about my needs, right? And just like your friends and family do, workplaces care and organizations care as well. Let them know what type of behaviors or programs or policies you would like to see. And always know too that there is a lot of organizations, not just NC State University, but municipalities as well as private companies that fund you, that provide grants, that provide monies and support that looks like different things to help you with creating programs for zero waste. They exist. And this is a way that we create change, right? We're letting people know and we're spreading that message. And when we do that, then we can really begin to reform. And reform is that 8th R, which I love. And reform has come about through the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And basically the UN came out and said, we have to transform our world. And we have to involve everyone. It is not just governments and businesses. It's everyone, our communities, our educational systems, our families, our teachers. Everyone has a role to play in making zero waste a reality. And so first and foremost then, zero waste, it's a universal concept. It's not just about the individual. All of us are challenged to act, okay? Second, it is interconnected in this system. So just how we honor and acknowledge that zero waste has its roots in Indigenous culture, we understand that it is interconnected with achieving global change. You cannot have climate justice, healthy planets, without also looking at healthy people, and healthy people without also looking at the systems of oppression that are not making people, like environmental racism. They're all connected. And it's okay to know that sometimes we focus on one thing over another, but it all is connected. And just like solutions are also all connected. So it's not just scientists who are responsible or policymakers are responsible for making a change, but we need to rely on everyone, artists, musicians, right? The kids on TikTok, they have a huge impact. We all have a role to play. And no matter whether we're fighting racial injustice or climate injustice, it's related. And when we work for people, we work for planet, and it's vice versa. And this is how we actually create a transformative system. Because that's what we have to do. We cannot just accept the status quo anymore. We're past that point, right? We need to make big fundamental changes, and zero waste is a way that we can do that. It truly is. Not the only way, but it's a way. And so final thoughts before I'll stop sharing my screen. And then if anyone wants to unmute themselves or ask me any questions in here, I'm sorry I haven't been active in the chat. But just know it does take all of us again. We all have a role to play, and we don't have to be perfect at it, but I do ask that we try to learn more every day, and we work towards this journey, right? Of reducing the amount of waste that we consume, of rethinking our processes. And by doing that, it can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to talk to people about this, to be like, hey, boss, I know you love to buy us candy bars at every staff meeting, but have you thought about possibly providing us organic apples from the local farmers market? Because then we don't have this waste, we're supporting local economies, and we can compost the apple core, right? You may feel uncomfortable doing that, but it's something that we can do. We can have these conversations, and we can also be uncomfortable in our own lives when I have been out all day and I pass a cookout and I'm like, whoo, cookout shake sounds amazing, right? I can be uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, just go home, Lonnie. You're fine. You don't need to take that on. Or I could also know that, guess what? A moment of joy, sometimes I just have to take that, and it's okay. But solutions are also possible. No matter what, there are steps to zero waste, but solutions are possible. Many paths lead to success. But be intersectional with the way that we do things, okay? So questions for me now. I'm gonna stop sharing, but I definitely want you to know that we are really excited about Earth Month and all our events. There we go. Let me see. I hope that I'm stopped sharing. There we go. But oh, where do I put my compost until I need to take it to the compost center? And what do I transport it in? That is a great question. Thank you so much. I actually, if you have space in your freezer, I found that that's a really great tip because it keeps it cold. It keeps it, you're able to store it for a long time. It kind of freezes up. And then when you do take it, you can just take it in whatever, like a brown paper bag. That's how I would recommend transporting it just in a brown paper bag, like you throw it in there, brown paper bag, that way you dump the whole bag right into the carts that are made accessible at the convenience centers. You could also store it in just a sealed container. I personally use two different types of containers. One is my coffee containers, right? Because I'm a huge coffee drinker. I have the big old coffee things with the lid. I store my compost in there. I say two because I did buy myself over the holidays a vintage ice bucket that has a lid because it was beautiful and I love it. And I wanted something to sit out on my counter, and it's bright yellow, but it has a lid. And so we throw our peels, our really quick stuff in there, just like banana peels and just, you know, vegetable peels or whatever in there. And then if you were transporting it, I would just toss that into a brown paper bag and take it with you. No matter however you transport it, just no plastic bags, right? You can't put it into a plastic bag. But yeah, there are opportunities to compost within the home as well as in a backyard if you have that accessible. And we actually have an event coming up in 2 weeks. I want to say it's April 14th with Rhonda Sherman. And she is a world-renowned vermiculture expert. That's worms. And so there are ways that you can actually compost within the house. Oh, fiber recycling. So the question is from everyone, is there fiber recycling still going on campus? Yes and no. So textiles at college, Wilson College of Textiles, they do have one of the textile containers. It looks like a very small dumpster, but it's labeled for textiles only. And that goes to a local organization that does take that either for donations and or scraps. That is a forward-facing program. And by forward-facing, I mean like for students, staff, and faculty. There are back-of-house programs as well. So we work with different organizations that accept like old uniforms for scraps. And then we also work with, like during move out, we work with TROSA, which is an organization out of Durham that will take clothing for resale within their thrift stores, but they're a nonprofit. It's a whole big thing. So there are different ways to do that, but that's what happens at NC State. The Wake County Convenience Centers do have textile recycling drop-off for free as well. So definitely look that up on their website because you can do that there. Okay, another question that I got is directly to me. 8 is a lot. Is there something okay, what do I recommend? Basically, that's what the question is. What do I recommend most? 8 is a lot. And honestly, out of all of this, I would say just get involved with other people and other like-minded people. And by like-minded, I mean, if you're interested in zero waste, there are groups either on campus for student organizations, actually a ton of groups that you can join. There are a bunch of green teams, or you can start a green team if you are staff or faculty on campus. If you're within the community, know that we have organizations like Towards Zero Waste is a great one. There are also these Facebook groups for buy, sell, buy nothing groups, where they will share items within where you live so that it's very localized, give items away for free. And so find people or groups to what calls you. And again, what calls you, maybe it's not just about zero waste, maybe it is about voter registration, right? Because that's important. Maybe it is about working for certain policies or trying to encourage policies about solar panels or public transportation. No matter what you're interested in, it's all going to connect and we're all reaching that same goal. But just find the people and get involved with them, okay? It can be in person, virtual, most things are done virtually, but it exists. And so that's that one tip that I would recommend most. Okay, is there any other questions? I'll try and look at this. Okay, I don't see any, but I just wanted to thank you all. Oh, you know what? I do have a screen. I forgot. Let me share one more screen with you. And that is, I forgot that I added this. We do have a ton of upcoming events for Earth Month. Visit calendar.ncsu.edu to see all the events across campus from all of our partners and student organizations. They're hosting a ton of fun stuff. This is just the items that are here for the coming week, right? And that we're doing. So be on the lookout for a lot of events. And some of these are even in person. So there's virtual opportunities, there's in-person opportunities. No matter what it is, we have something for you. You can also check out our website, which is recycling.ncsu.edu, and that'll give you a lot of information about what's going on here on campus. And okay, well, thank you again. I hope that this program met your needs. If you have any questions, please feel free. You can always message us within social media. So at NC State Recycles via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also have a TikTok, hence the TikTok challenge going on all this month. You can email our office recycling@ncsu.edu as well. Yeah, so have a wonderful Earth Month. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bye.